Welcome to Naveen Tech Hub.
Imagine an e-commerce application running on Amazon RDS for MySQL. Customers continuously place orders, update delivery addresses, and complete payments. The application database is excellent for these transactions, but the analytics team wants to study sales trends in Amazon Redshift. Traditionally, we would build an ETL pipeline, schedule jobs, handle failures, and maintain transformation code. In this tutorial, we will remove most of that operational work by using an AWS Zero-ETL integration. We will prepare the MySQL source, configure binary logging, connect an encrypted Redshift warehouse, and explain the final step required to query the replicated data. Welcome to Naveen Tech Hub. Let us build it step by step. ETL means extract, transform, and load. A traditional pipeline reads data from the operational database, transforms it into an analytical format, and loads it into a warehouse on a schedule. That design gives us flexibility, but it also creates code, infrastructure, monitoring, retries, and maintenance work. With Zero-ETL, AWS manages the replication path between the supported source and target. When a row is inserted, updated, or deleted in RDS for MySQL, the change is captured and made available in Redshift in near real time. Think of it as a managed live connection instead of a nightly package delivery. The name does not mean that data movement has disappeared. It means we do not build and operate the traditional ETL pipeline ourselves. The replicated data arrives largely as is. So if we need business transformations, aggregates, or dimensional models, we can create them later inside Redshift. The AWS console divides the process into 3 logical areas, although our deck expands them into 4 teaching steps. First, prepare the source database. For RDS for MySQL, that means using a compatible custom DB parameter group and enabling the required row-level binary log settings. Second, prepare the target data warehouse. The Redshift cluster or serverless workgroup must be encrypted, must support case-sensitive identifiers, and must authorize the RDS source through the correct resource policy. Third, create the Zero-ETL integration by selecting the source and target. After the integration becomes active, there is one more important database step. Create a destination database in Redshift from the integration. Only then can the replicated schemas and tables become queryable. Keep this end-to-end flow in mind as we work through the console. A DB parameter group is a reusable collection of database engine settings. The default parameter group is managed by AWS and cannot be edited directly, so we create a custom one for this integration. Give the group a meaningful name, such as RDS MySQL Zero-ETL PG. Add a description that explains its purpose. This becomes especially useful when an account contains many development, test, and production databases. One correction to notice in the screenshot: it briefly shows Aurora MySQL. Our tutorial source is Amazon RDS for MySQL, so select MySQL Community, not Aurora MySQL. Aurora uses cluster parameter groups and has different Zero-ETL prerequisites. Matching the source engine here prevents incompatible settings later. Now, choose the engine type and parameter group family. The engine type should be MySQL Community for an RDS for MySQL instance. The family must match the major engine version that you plan to run, such as the appropriate MySQL 8.0 or 8.4 family offered in your region. Why does this matter? A parameter group created for one engine family cannot simply be attached to an incompatible database version. If the family is wrong, the group may not appear in the database creation screen. Before you continue, check the current AWS support matrix for RDS Zero-ETL in your region. Supported versions and regions can change over time. For this demonstration, choose a currently supported RDS for MySQL version and build the parameter group for that exact family. This screen highlights a simple but common console issue. Both the parameter group name and description are required. If either field is blank or the name violates the naming rules, AWS marks the field in red and prevents creation. Use a name that begins with a letter, avoid spaces, and keep it descriptive. Then select the compatible MySQL family and confirm that the type is a DB parameter group. Once the group is created, open it so we can modify the binary log parameters needed by Zero-ETL. Search the parameter list for bin log format and set the value to row. MySQL binary logging can record changes in different ways. Statement-based logging records the SQL statement, while row-based logging records the affected row values. Zero-ETL needs the row-level change information so it can reproduce inserts, updates, and deletes accurately in the target. This setting is the foundation of change data capture for the integration. Save the change and pay attention to the apply type shown in the console. Even when a parameter is marked dynamic, the safest workflow is to confirm the effective value on the running database. If you attach or change the group after creating the instance, a reboot or session restart may be required for all activity to use the correct format. Next, search for binlog row image and set it to full. With row-based binary logging, MySQL can store only part of a changed row, or the full before and after row information. Zero-ETL requires the complete row image. Redshift needs enough information to apply updates and deletions correctly and to maintain a consistent analytical copy. So remember these two values as a pair. Binlog format equals row and binlog row image equals full. Save the parameter group changes. In production, also monitor the storage and I/O impact of binary logging because additional change records consume resources. The managed integration reduces pipeline work, but the source database still needs sensible capacity planning and monitoring. Now go to Amazon RDS, choose Databases, and select Create Database. Choose MySQL as the engine, and use the full configuration option so we can control the version, availability, instance class, storage, encryption, backups, and parameter group. The Easy Create option can be useful for experiments, but it hides important settings. For this tutorial, full configuration makes the relationship between the source database and the Zero-ETL prerequisites visible. Again, select a MySQL version currently supported for Zero-ETL in your region. Avoid choosing a version only because it is the newest item in the list. Compatibility with the integration is the deciding factor. The template provides a starting set of defaults. For a low-cost learning environment, dev test is normally the practical choice. For a real production workload, start from production and evaluate a multi-AZ deployment for high availability. Multi-AZ protects the transactional source from an availability zone failure, but it also increases cost. It is not a requirement to learn Zero-ETL. A single AZ instance can be enough for a temporary lab, as long as we understand that it is not the production architecture. The slide says production defaults to a multi-AZ cluster. Treat that as a design recommendation, not a rule that replaces judgment. Choose the topology based on recovery objectives, availability needs, workload, and budget. For this demo, keep the environment intentionally small and delete it afterward. Choose the supported MySQL engine version and enter a unique DB instance identifier, such as MySQL DB-0-ETL. The identifier names the AWS resource. It is not necessarily the initial logical database name inside MySQL. Next, configure the administrator credentials. For a quick private lab, you can allow AWS to manage the master password. For production, avoid hard-coding credentials or sharing the master user. Store secrets in AWS Secrets Manager, use least privileged database users, and rotate credentials. Also, review the extended support option. If the selected major version has passed standard support, additional charges may apply. A tutorial should normally use a current supported version, rather than depend on extended support. The DB instance class controls CPU, memory, and network capacity. A burstable class may be sufficient for a short lab. A general-purpose or memory-optimized class is more appropriate when the workload is steady or memory-intensive. The screenshot shows provisioned IOPS SSD, or IO2. This option is designed for workloads that require consistent, high I/O performance and durability. It is powerful, but usually unnecessary for a small learning database and can be more expensive. For a new general-purpose RDS deployment, GP3 is the current recommended general-purpose storage generation. Choose IO2 only when workload measurements and latency requirements justify it. The Zero-ETL feature does not force one storage type. This remains a database performance and cost decision. For testing purposes, standard general-purpose SSD storage is sufficient. Also, consider enabling storage auto-scaling if you anticipate your database data will grow over time. In the additional configuration section, this is where you attach the parameter group you configured in Step 1. Ensure you also enable encryption to keep your database secure. Before creating the database, review the summary and estimated monthly cost. The estimate depends on the instance class, availability configuration, storage type, allocated storage, backup retention, and region. Remember that this tutorial can create charges in both RDS and Redshift. Redshift serverless can also consume resources when queries run, while a provisioned cluster has ongoing node cost. Review maintenance settings, backups, encryption, monitoring, and deletion protection, then choose Create Database. Do not treat the console estimate as a final invoice. Use AWS Pricing Calculator for planning, set AWS budgets alerts, and remove temporary resources when the tutorial is complete. With the creation process finished, your database will initialize. Wait until the status displays as available in the console. Once that happens, you are ready to move on and build your Zero-ETL integration. From the Zero-ETL integration section, choose Create Zero-ETL Integration. Enter a unique identifier, such as MySQL-Redshift-Zero-ETL. Add a useful description so another engineer understands the source, target, and environment. The integration identifier is important because Redshift later uses the integration ID when creating the destination database. Use a consistent naming convention that includes the application or domain and environment. The wizard will lead us through source selection, target selection, optional filtering, tags, encryption, and final review. Next, you will define the integration target. Ensure the correct AWS account is selected, then browse your available resources. Remember that only encrypted Redshift data warehouses are eligible as targets for these integrations. You may see a blue banner at the top of your screen. This indicates that AWS is automatically configuring necessary resource policies and case sensitivity settings for your Redshift cluster. This is standard, so proceed with the remaining steps to finalize your integration. Once the integration is created, you can verify it by opening the query editor in your Redshift console. Create a new connection using temporary credentials, which eliminates the need to manage database passwords directly. Let us recap the complete architecture. First, we created a custom RDS for MySQL parameter group. Second, we enabled row-based binary logging with full row images. Third, we launched an RDS MySQL instance using that group and waited for it to become available. Fourth, we selected an encrypted Redshift target, validated case sensitivity and authorization, and created the Zero-ETL integration. Finally, after the integration became active, we created a Redshift destination database from the integration. The result is a managed, near real-time replication path from the transactional source to the analytical warehouse, without custom pipeline code. We should still monitor integration health, table synchronization state, replication lag, source capacity, and CloudWatch metrics. Zero-ETL removes much of the pipeline maintenance. It does not remove architecture, security, cost, or data quality responsibilities. Now you understand the complete RDS MySQL to Amazon Redshift Zero-ETL flow, from parameter groups and binary logging to target authorization, integration creation, and querying the destination database. As your next practice exercise, create a small orders table with a primary key in MySQL. Insert a few rows and verify that the data appears in Redshift. Then update and delete one row and observe the replicated result. If this walkthrough helped you, subscribe to Naveen Tech Hub for more beginner-friendly AWS, cloud, AI, and system design tutorials. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next practical video.